Welcome, one and all, to Little Rock Gaming. That's gaming from the Little Rock. Today, we're going to be reviewing these nice decks that were provided to us by Forbidden Power. They were nice enough to give us this to be able to review them, give you an honest opinion on them. And if you were interested in getting these decks, you can always check the link on the description. Or if you're around in the area, you can go to visit them in MCDA. They're always open to have new players. That being said, let's get to it.
So today, guys, we're going to be reviewing the Quick Draw deck piloted by Stella Lee, Wildcard. So she's a legendary human rogue. She also has, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile the top card of your library, and until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Additionally, she has tap and copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if you cast 3 or more spells this turn. A copy and effect in the command zone. Fine, it's a little bit limited because you have to cast 3 spells, but also you're getting the exile benefit, the impulsive draw benefit. That seems pretty strong.
It is really, really good. I mean, we've seen some decks that let you just exile things from the top of your deck, especially the fact that you can play it until the end of your next turn.
That's very good.
Right? That's really good, because normally the way that it works with impulse draw is that you need to do it by the end of that turn, and more often than not, you get a land when you have already played the land for a turn, so you're just like, okay, cool, I guess, Yeah. But no, that's a pretty good thing. Now, the secondary commander is Eris, Roar of the Storm. It's a legendary elemental warlock that reads, this spell costs 2 less to cast for each different mana value among instants and sorcery cards in your graveyard. It has flying and prowess. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 4/4 red dragon elemental creature token with flying and prowess. So that's a lot, right? That is a lot of things, and a lot of things to consider. It's a very expensive secondary commander. However, it can be discounted quite easily.
That's like having four different mana value instants or sorceries in your graveyard.
Which is not crazy, to be completely fair. I mean, like, by your by your fourth turn, you most definitely will have something along those lines. Or at least you will be discounting 4, making it a 4-drop. It is not bad, but honestly, it's a little bit too, it's more like a value piece, in my opinion. Because what you want is, for example, for the main commander, for Stella, what you want is that, well, of course, you're going to be casting your second spell each turn, which in a Spellslinger deck is quite easy. And that gives you an added value of that there's an extra card you can play next turn.
Let's put it this way. I would be much happier to draw Eris in the mid to late game than I would be to draw Stella Lee in the mid to late game. I'm much more comfortable with Stella Lee in the command zone, and I know I'm going to get her out early and possibly then draw into Eris. I feel that just is a more streamlined method to piloting the deck.
Oh yeah, 100%. Especially when you consider what the deck wants to do, right? So what is the game plan of this deck in particular?
So as long as you're running Stella Lee in the command zone, I think that this deck works a lot at instant speed, and it's packed full of card draw and impulsive draw effects, as well as creatures who benefit and improve the value of your spell slinging. This deck aims to cast more spells than anyone else, generate value, and create the ideal environment to storm off in one big 10. But one thing I noticed, not that many actual storm cards in the deck. Also, only 1 counter spell. Though this deck is not about controlling the board, it's about storming off and casting more spells than anyone else. So it does fit the theme. Plus, that 1 card draw spell is Arcane Denial, which is also a card draw spell.
Yeah. So yeah, this deck, what it wants to do is just, like you say, storm off. Although there's a little payoff because, as you really pointed out, there's not a lot of storm cards. So one easy add to this deck, Grape Shot. At least you're going to be doing a lot of damage out of making this, out of storming off, out of casting a lot of multiple different spells. What is the distribution of this deck? You mentioned that there's a lot of card draws, but how many are there?
So let's go through it quickly. The lands in the deck, there are 38, and then 12 ramps. So 50% of your deck is just mana in some way. Then we have 21 and a half card draw spells. The half is the Arcane Denial that we mentioned earlier. That's a massive number.
It is.
A lot of them are cantrips. So they're one time I draw a card, opts, ponders, and the like. but there are so many of them. You're going to be seeing a lot of your deck when you play this game. Removal, we have 6.5. Again, the 0.5 is the Arcane Denial because it's interaction. 2 protection pieces because you do have a lot of valuable pieces on your board and you don't really want them to be taken away.
Yes, of course.
You have spell payoffs or benefits, 12. That's very good in the deck. There are a number of creatures and spells themselves that have a lot of benefit. For example, the new card, Smoldering Stagecoach, which reads, whenever Smoldering Stagecoach attacks, the next instant spell and next sorcery spell you cast this turn each have Cascade. So it's going to give, right? It gives both types Cascade. How crazy is that?
That's amazing. That's such a good card.
Right? Next up, we have Treasure Generation. We also have 6. Funnily enough, in this deck, which isn't really about generating treasures, it has the same amount as the Olivia deck. I find that kind of odd. Token generators, there are 4. Theft, there are 3. Recursion, there are 4. Now that's specifically to instant and sorcery spells. There are also 2 spells that copy, which is including the commander, and then there's one kind of odd creature which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. So what are the new cards or some notable cards of this?
Notably, we have as reprints, we have Niv Mizzet Perun, Pongify, Winged Boots, very good protection, Shark Typhoon, Propaganda, Windfall, Vandal Blast. So many staples for a Spellslinger deck. This is a very, very good, well put together deck, I would say.
That's actually quite interesting. I mean, like another thing of note of this, although this deck is a lot of like instants and sorceries, as you mentioned, funnily enough, it is the most valuable out of the box. Once you add all the singles, as of the recording of this video, you're looking at $123 of value.
That is
singles.
Absolutely the highest one that we've seen.
Yeah, like you have, like again, like we were saying, like staples, Pongify, that's $5. That's nothing to scoff at. Then you have like the Niv Mizzet Perun, which is not technically, it's not a crazy expensive card, but with so many card draw spells, you're going to just be pinging for 1 damage at literally everything, which is how this particular deck wants to control the board. It is not by interaction in the sense of counter spells. It is by doing a bit here and there, and then by the end, you're just like, okay, I'm the only one on the board right now.
That's it. You're just slinging spells, shooting people down, and then by the end of it,
exactly. And then, if you have like you said, like you can easily add the Isochron Scepter and the Dramatic Reversal.
Infinite mana, just infinite mana.
So then, you just basically go our turn, so it is actually like really, really good. So favorite and least favorite cards of this particular deck?
Okay, good question. So my favorite card is probably Rousing Refrain, which is a really cool card, which is basically very much like Jeska's Will because it allows you to add 1 red mana for each card in target opponent's hand, and until end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. Then you exile it with 3 time counters on it. So you're basically going to recur this card once the time counters go away. So it never goes away. You're going to have Jeska's Will once every 3 turns. Seems very strong. You're just losing the impulsive draw effect from Jeska's Will. Seems quite strong.
Yeah, which in this deck it doesn't really hurt you since you have so many draw cards.
Exactly.
And you're just always going to have a full hand, and hopefully your opponents as well. So you will be able to benefit from all those cards that they have in hand, generating more mana, which will then translate into you casting even more spells, and that will already count as your first spell for the turn. So it's already pretty good. It's really, really good. Such a good card.
It is a very interesting card. My least favorite card in the deck, which has, in my opinion, very, very, very little synergy, is a card called the Terramander. So it's basically a 1/1 flying salamander drake that has adapt 4 for 1 blue and 7, but this ability costs 1 less to activate for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard, which is fine. And then if you adapt it, it'll get 4 1/1 counters. So you might have a flying 5/5 in the late game.
For 9 mana in total?
For 9 mana, but obviously it's going to be discounted. But I mean, it just seems kind of weak, and there's no synergy really in the deck for 1/1 counters except one particular card, and it just doesn't seem like I would much rather put in a Grape Shot or a 1,000-Year Storm. I'm just saying, it just seems like a cuttable card to me.
Yeah, 100%. So my favorite card out of this whole deck is a staple for spellslinging decks, especially ones playing red, which is Mystic's Mastery. It's a sorcery that costs 4 mana, 3 and a red, And it says, exile target card that is an instant or sorcery from a graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it, and you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. After you do so, then, well, you will need to exile Mystic's Mastery. However, if you have a little bit more mana, which in this deck is not that very difficult to do, especially playing your favorite card, right, of the deck, you can overload it, where basically instead of target, you play all of the instants and sorceries that are in your graveyard.
Wow.
Storming off for the very, very good price of 8 mana.
That seems very doable, especially with the card we just said, especially if you were to remove my least favorite card and put in a Jessica's Will.
Exactly,
Easy.
100%. Now, talking about least favorite cards and your Terramander, I also have the card that the only card it synergizes with, which is Tesseret's Gambit.
A card draw spell that allows you to proliferate, I believe.
Yes, it does. However, why did I pick it? Because the card draw part is pretty good, right? It costs 3 and a Phyrexian blue mana, or 3 and 2 life, for those that prefer doing it that way. However, the proliferate part bothers me here because it does absolutely nothing for this deck.
Absolutely nothing. I was looking through it and I said, there's nothing. I said, oh, this one particular card. So you have to find the Terramander, play it, evolve, adapt it, and then cast Tesseret's Gambit. Exactly. I mean,
it's a little bit too far-fetched, to be honest. And again, these are basically, you are taking 2 spots in the deck for cards that interact with each other, where you can add pieces like Jessica's Will if you happen to have one, or
1,000 Year Storm.
There are many other cheap creatures that actually do much more than these 2, right? That, I mean, again, this is not added value for that. This is just a synergy that they added. Maybe they just had like an extra 2 cards that they needed to fill. But this is a removal for me. Again, card draw is pretty good, but the proliferate in this particular case does nothing. So that would be my least favorite card.
I agree. So on a scale of S to F, what would you score this deck, Luis?
Well, in terms of what we have mentioned before, fun factor, the value that it has, in the cards, how fun it is to play, how easy it is to play for a newbie. This one, honestly, just because of such a great value that it gives to, for how much this deck costs, this one I will have to give it an A-. Because yes, it is one of the more complicated to play in the sense of it's not very beginner friendly, but if you buy this deck, you're going to get some of the best staples of the arguably best color in Magic, right? Which is blue, to my pain, right? But it is true, it's going to give you so many good cards for decks that even if you don't want to keep on playing this deck in the future because spell slinging is too complicated, you're going to have great cards that can go in a lot of different synergies, right? Or maybe, you have a deck that is running Grixis, that also benefits from, spells, and casting a lot of spells in the same turn. So, yeah, this one, that is my reasoning behind it. Again, you get almost double your money, at least at the time of recording, once you get this Precon. And again, Stella Lee is a really good commander. It has a lot of really cool uses, and as you said, it's pretty easy to go infinite with her. So that would be my score for this particular.
I would have to agree. I was going to give it a B+. It just shows that I'm a bit more of a harsh teacher. But again, yeah, I do think that even though it feels a little bit harder to play because spell slinging is inherently a little bit more complicated, it's such a good value deck. And as you said, if you're not super into the idea, you just have most of the staples for any Spellslinger deck that you want to make in the future. And even if you don't like Spellslinging, you're gonna have a lot of staples for blue, which is just a very strong card, very strong color. Also red, very strong color. That's a lot of good cards out in this deck. This Rousing Refrain, for example, I can think of a couple of decks that would love to run it. So yeah, even if you're not gonna play it in the long run, you are definitely gonna take it apart and just milk it for all it's worth.
Yeah, put it to good use. That's
Absolutely.
For sure. That's for sure.
So yeah, I think on the whole, this is a very good deck for a newer player to pick up, to get into it,
100%. Or for someone to build up on their collection.
Absolutely. If you want to check out the full deck list, links in the description below. Well guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Again, thank you so much to Forbidden Power for providing us these decks. We had a really good time reviewing them. If you guys want to pick them up, link is in the description below as we said before. Check it out and we'll see you in the next video.
Like and subscribe.